So we picked a handful of things that we feel are worth digging in more to today. And by the end of our time together, we hope that you'll be able to leverage AI confidently, streamline your enrichment with workflows and assets. And of course, we want you to be more flexible with your data, which is a big theme that we are bringing as part of this release. So please ask questions, help us to learn and understand what you need from us.
As John mentioned, I'm from engineering, and I want you to come away from your time with us today with clarity on exactly what your next steps could be. How is your roadmap going to change based on what you've learned here at Unlock? And if you haven't already, should be, grab your phones out and please join us on Slido. Why we need your help is that your feedback that you give us in that poll will help us inform our product teams about what you actually are caring about right now, and it helps us do better work for you. So, let's jump in.
So, who here has tried or already uses Gen AI in the PIM today?
This guy.
Okay, so it's actually slightly less than 40%, but you are part of about 40% of our customers who are actively using and benefiting from AI-enhanced enrichment.
And we're seeing around 15 million monthly Gen AI calls, and it's growing exceptionally sharply. And what's even cooler is almost all of those are automated. And thanks to AI, we're seeing richer content that resonates with customers far more.
Yep, we've seen our customers save time and energy, be able to focus on what they do best. And since the launch, the feedback's been overwhelmingly positive. As you heard this morning, we're just getting started.
We are. And so, to help create even more relevant content, you can now combine your attribute-level AI prompts with family-level prompts. And I'm going to take you through that right now on my computer. So let's flip over. There's my face. And if you could change the slide for me, please.
Sorry.
Thanks so much. Right, so I'm following some notes in front of me. If you want me to slow down, don't hesitate to ask. Remember, this session is for you. And so anything that you need, let me know, and I can do it. So let's start by using our shortcuts menu, which we saw and applauded earlier, and jump over to the composition attribute. Now, thanks to the new usage tab, I can see that this belongs to multiple disparate families. Yet, in the generative AI tab, we can see that it is a generic prompt selected from one of the ones Akeneo provides, or of course you can change it to a custom one. We're taking into account lots of the product attributes, and of course you could include family name to help clarify it, yet there's a better way. Jumping over to our Users tab once again, heading over to a family. Now, if I go to Gen AI, I can see I have a new option. And I can put whatever I think is viable in here to ensure that the Gen AI prompt is able to take the attribute level prompt and combine it with some information that is specific about the family. Look at that, I got some magic keys. In this particular case, I'm saying for this family, I want you to focus on defining the materials separately if there are more than one, and if there's an environmental trait, please add those in as well. So let's save that and jump over to a product. There we go. Now here's the prompt that was generated before for composition without the family prompt. If I copy this so that we can compare it and then ask Gen AI to do it again, now that we have the family prompt, and let's put that in there so that we can compare, make the box nice and big, we can see that there is a difference. Now, most of the time, with the original attribute level prompt, you're going to get the right answer for the majority of the cases. This just gives you that extra bit of control to make sure that your content is more relative and richer. Of course, you can do this with multiple different attributes, not only the composition. So it's specifically powerful when it comes to things like SEO, and I'll show you that in a second as well. We're just going to go straight into another demo, and thank you very much. So let's see at how what we learned previously from Andrew and Alex about PX Insights. Let's look at a slight different variation of that specifically focused on Gen AI. Now, they went through products, I'll leave that be, and there's a PX Insights view here, and of course I can look at anything I want that is filtered, but I'm just going to pick the top one. It doesn't really matter in a particular case. Now, what I'm going to do is head over to PX Insights tab, wait for that to load. Let's look at some of these interesting intakes from the customer's voice. How are they referring to the product? And I can already see that they're using really good words like cuddly and cozy. And of course, naturally, a question comes to mind. Is that how I'm referring to it when it comes to either the description or SEO? Not sure. So let's just, for the sake of the demo, let's screenshot that, keep it to one side so we can compare. And now, let's, of course, we can either use the actions down the bottom to do this, or we via going to the attribute setting, or we can use our shortcuts menu. And so in this particular case, let's go to keywords. Shortcuts is really great, isn't it, John? It's just like flying around like this. I love it.
Did you get that?
And in this particular case, going to Gen AI, I'm now going to activate reviews in Gen AI, much of what you saw earlier. Of course, saving that and heading back over to the product that I had. We can now go to attributes, filter down for SEO, and let's generate the keywords. In fact, there should have been keywords there already. I apologize the fact that there aren't. We were going to compare them together. And so let me make this box a little bigger. Move this puppy up. We should start to see some customer-specific language in there, and we can't, and that's okay. So cuddly isn't showing up in that particular case. Let's ask Gen AI to do it again. No demo survives contact.
Question is, did you save the changes to the prompt?
That's a good question. Should we check if I did?
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else catch that? Any bets of whether I did or didn't?
The great thing about demos is they're live, and I think one of the challenges we have is we're wanting to do this and repeat it every time, so we try not to save what we do because we don't want to like ruin the demo for the next person. And Chuck's so kind, he's trying to not ruin the demo for the next person and forgets to actually save it now.
So we are taking PX Insights into account in this particular case. And of course, that's the thing about generative AI, right? It's predictive. Every single time it's trying to do it. And so let's see if it did it. We're looking for cuddly. No matter how many times I do this demo, I'm surprised it hasn't come up this particular time. But let's put that down to my use of the laptop. There we go. Yeah. And so what you're meant to see here is it's taking the specific keywords that are coming from PX Insights and enriching the various different aspects. And what we were hoping to see here today, although we didn't, is that it was meant to take the keywords from PX Insights that were the customer's version of how they spoke and include that in how our SEO was so that we can appear more in their search results.
And I'm sure when Alex comes back in a minute, he'll be
explain
like,
it.
This is what you missed, and we'll figure it out. So, did you? Different product? Because you picked the first product, didn't you? Not the one you searched for. Was that right?
A table can be cozy.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. This is what, see, this was a deliberate mistake to get you to interact, so thank you.
So as we can see, all along, that was on purpose.
As we intended.
Just a short question.
Yeah, please.
I see that with the reviews, you said there are positive elements and the negative elements. So it's taking them on the rating, or it's just really looking to the content of the review? Because it takes it also into account, for example, denial words. For example, you say comfortable, so that's maybe a positive word. But if they say, yeah, I like your product, but it's not so comfortable, then they really see that the whole context of the blog. Correct?
So it's going to take the sentiment keywords out, and so we're not going to publish anything negative or with anything with a negative sentiment or a negative connotation won't be applied in this particular case. Good question. Now, I'm going to take it afterwards and take it back to Andrew and just double check it, but throughout my hundreds of tests, I've never seen it come up or bring anything, even if it was a slightly negative connotation word used in the positive review, I haven't seen it show up in the other product. Okay, thank you for the savior on that table. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's move to the next slide, please.
So hopefully we can see. Can we? Can we see? We can see that PX Insights represents a fundamental shift in how we approach content creation, especially when combined with other AI enrichment tools in the PIM.
And John, before you go on, could we flip to the slides quickly on the big screen? Thank you.
As we heard this morning, is that powerful feedback loop. To be able to listen to your customers, to analyze what matters to them, and then act on those insights immediately and flexibly in your content.
And that's great, John. In fact, this is one of my favorite product cloud features. The team did a really tremendous job on building this and rolling it out. And as a sort of pro user of the platform, this definitely is a feature that I thoroughly enjoy using and playing with. And so the natural next question that I'm sure many of you are asking is, look, AI really helps us enrich the product, but how can we be sure that we're confident of what it's saying before we go live? I'm going to take you through that. So as we saw this morning, with the addition of the review step, in conjunction with the enrichment step, workflows has now become sort of the ideal way to solve this problem. And so for the majority of our customers, we see them creating a workflow with 2 or fewer steps. Something that just says, hey, do me a favor, please help me understand when I need to enrich something or when I need to review it. I'm going to show you that case to start with. If we could switch to the demo environment.
Thanks.
Great.
And just to set you up here, Chuck's basically going to be pretending to be 3 different people. Because obviously workflows works best when you're in a team. That's when it's most useful. And then to demo that, rather than using screenshots or trickery, we want to show you those different personas in those different environments. But good luck.
Thank you, sir. And table on the left, you got my back. All right, let's do it. So here's an example of a simple step. This is what we heard earlier. It's a workflow that simply says, hey, when the description is not empty, and it's for a bedroom, I would like you to ask Emily or myself to review for the e-commerce platform for the United States locale to just double check the description and the name. And now in the morning, I'll get an email, but as I come into work and I look at my dashboard, I'll see an alert saying, hey, you've been asked to check something. That is the simplest version of it. And just to show you how simple it is to create, here is an example of a product where at any time I can just create a step the same way I've created workflow steps before, with the addition of this dropdown, which allows me to create a review step. Going back, let's look at something more complicated. So here is a workflow that goes through many steps, all the way from nothing to done. And it's saying anything that doesn't have a completeness score that is 100% in kitchens and dining, I'd like you to go through these steps. Now, zooming into what marketing is doing, you can see that it asks Raquel to take 5 days to review this content. And then there's a review step that asks Emily, who's Raquel's manager, both great people, to review these steps before they go live. Now let's look at the interaction between these two as we go. So if we jump over to Emily's profile, she comes in the morning, she can see that she's got 3 products on the kitchen and dining workflow. But Raquel also comes in and starts working away. Jumps in the morning, cup of coffee or cup of tea, picks up the first product, and off to the races they go. Now, of course, Raquel can always filter to just focus on the attributes that are missing, but in this case, Raquel decides to take the approach of just looking through everything individually, making sure that they're happy, and I've got, there we go. Raquel accidentally makes a mistake on purpose, table on the left, hold. And she thinks it's a bestseller as far as she knows. The spreadsheet in her hand says it is, so she's going to click yes and no on the clearance. Now, she might miss an attribute. And that's okay, that happens. But as she clicks done and next, which is meant to move us to the next product, the PIM says, hey, hold on a minute. You sure about that? Isn't there something missing? And it's okay if Raquel disagrees and move it on, send it to Emily. But in this case, she comes back and says, no, in fact, it's not a clearance item. Good catch. Thank you, PIM. Raquel can save or done and next, straight to the next product. Now you can imagine Raquel really being able to move quickly through this workflow as she goes. And with Emily, you can see that it's now changed. She had 3 products before, now she's got 4. Jumping in on the bottom, we can see that she's got 3 days to review what Raquel sent to her. I'm clicking on that. Let's go through Emily's world. So Emily's reviewing it. Oh, we spotted that purposely injected mistake from Chuck. And then comments and says, hey, is missing. Starts to review a bit more and says, hey, I'm not sure this is a bestseller, not on the spreadsheet I saw. Are we sure? Great. And she rejects it, sending it back to Raquel at the marketing step. Now jumping back over to Raquel, as she comes into work in the morning, looks at her workflows, either this way, we can see she's got an action required, and clicking on it, instead of reviewing the products, we pulled that right to the top, and we've said, hey, Raquel, make sure you review this comments from Emily. So Raquel opens it up and starts to scroll through and can see that Emily has said, hey, you sure you missed something? Raquel's like, you're right, you're so right.
So Chuck, I'm amazed. You're jumping around, you're jumping from one person to another.
Thank you.
So this is a tough job. But hopefully for the people who are involved in this in real life, it's not a tough job. It's an easy job because they've just got their work, right? The workflow that they need to do and the steps that they need to take.
Absolutely.
But you make it look easy, by the way.
Hey, it's my job. It's in the title. And Raquel checks. And in fact, on the latest spreadsheet, it's not a bestseller. And Raquel says, over to Emily. So we jump over to Emily, just double checking that that's saved. Says we jump over to Emily, comes up immediately. Emily jumps into it, can see that the product was previously reviewed, can see what they said previously, double check everything, make sure it's okay, and then clicking approve. Now at any time, you can simply head over to the dashboard and see what workflows you have, what steps are active within those workflows, how many products, the urgency, and who's collaborating on it. And even cooler, next week, you come into work, or even tomorrow, I want you all, if you can, to jump over to the Discover tab if you're not using workflows, and click on Try It Now, or watch the training material. And in fact, this whole presentation, you'll see little QR codes on the top right. They're there to help get you access to that training material as quickly as possible so that you can get started using these features right away.
Maybe that's a good time to switch back to the presentation. Then
Yes,
see
please.
the QR code. So AI gives us the ability to do more with less, and workflows help us to increase our confidence before we go live. But as we become more flexible in our work, how do we make sure that the data model also keeps the flexibility? Let's look at 2 ways, starting with how we can manage compliance data more efficiently.
All right, so these are 2 of my favorite features. So I happen to be running the teams that build these sort of back-end things, these hard data-intensive tasks. That's my world, that's my passion. And so I'm excited to show you these 2, and I hope it goes well. So with attribute dependencies, we are able to control more and give more. But now it's about how do we focus on the relationship between data with attribute dependencies. It's sort of an if this, then that kind of case for attributes themselves, and it helps streamline your enrichment and make sure that everyone on your team can remain super focused. And so if we can switch to the demo, I'll show you attribute dependencies. Okay, so let's pop over to a product. And if we saw a little bit about this earlier, but we can already see that we have a dependency on this attribute. When I select a word of these types, I want you to apply this dependency. And of course, if we scroll down to compliance, or of course we can always use this attribute grouping down here to jump to compliance, we can see that it indeed does ask me to complete that attribute. Now, selecting it and saving it, if you pay attention to the completeness score, it's currently 80%. Can you see that? It might be a bit small, and I haven't got the fancy zoom thing. It goes from 80 to 85%. So the attribute now applies to completeness. And I was reminded by the impact owner who is building this feature that one of the key things that they see from customers is when you have products that are all fully complete, and then you inject something that requires compliance or requires a dependency, then the workflow starts to kick in and everything helps you understand exactly what's missing instead of just having fields everywhere. Now, of course, if we change the attribute, let's get rid of these. This looks very much like a metal table to me. We can see that it is in fact gone. Now this keeps teams focused. As you know, John, we've played a lot with it. It keeps teams focused on not having to fill lots of things out. It just shows what they need to see when they need to see it. And I think that that's great. Let's have a look at a dependency, actually, before we jump off. In fact, I'll go through this way. So if we go to dependencies.
And I hope that's sinking in, because this idea before, maybe the situation before was you'd have to have those as optional, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the only way to make sure that they're there. And then, of course, if they're optional, it shows as complete. Or if you have it as mandatory, even though you don't need it, then people are going to have NA in their clipboard and just going to be Control-V, 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 all the NAs, and then you get a fake completeness. So this is a really important way to focus the work of the team. And I'm sorry, Chuck, if I'm repeating what you're saying, but I hope that it makes sense to everyone, because it's hard to see, but I think in practice it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think we'll see big attribute lists just get shorter. And when you have seasonal attributes, instead of having them constantly in there, you will see those only be applicable at any given time. So I clicked on that would dependency, and that's what you can see here. And it's just simply saying, look, when you're in the bedside table family, and one of the main materials is one of the following, then just display that attribute. And of course, there's another one we'll see in a minute about allowed attributes. Super cool. If we go back, this is something that same impact owner wanted me to show you. They think this is impressive. In addition to compliance, you can help it enrich your search engine optimization and help push products through to be sold more. So here I have a throw that just simply says, with a throw that's polyester, we want you to reduce the options in the menu. And now in this particular case, Emily, one of the personas from Matcha, is saying, I want it on the side of the website. I want to filter type, I want to type by fabric, but I don't want this endless list. And so let's jump over to fabric real quick. I don't want this list every time somebody is given the option to look at throws. I only want to filter that down. And so jumping back over, we can go to a product. There it is there. And if we look at our dependencies, when it's, remember when it was polyester, it would show us, but if we just go down and have a look, we can see that, there it is there. The main material is fabric type. It says at the below, if you cannot see it, it says this fabric type attribute will be used as a filter on the website to boost discoverability and optimize Matcha's positioning on search engines and in marketplaces. That's powerful, an attribute that comes up and I'm able to manipulate based off whatever material is being used. That's really cool.
That is.
Right, let's go to the next. Thanks. Related to flexibility is attribute expansion. You heard Andy speak a little bit about that, and I'm going to show it to you now. So Emily comes to me in this case, and she's like, hey, Chuck, I heard from a friend that when employees try products out, and then on the website we say that they have, conversion increases. Now, before, we would have to sit with Emily and go, ooh, Emily, like, what are we trying to achieve here? What structure is this? How do we want to proceed? We're in a world now in the PIM where it sort of doesn't matter. We can just try things very quickly and change our mind even quicker. So let's jump over to attributes and create a new one. And this one's just going to be a simple yes or no. And it's going to be called, if I can spell, let's just call it employee fave for now. Now I would have to stop here and I have to ask myself, do I really want to make this per channel? Do I want this value to be for all channels? Same with locales. And now, it doesn't really matter. Internally at Akeneo, we're always playing with this stuff. And now it's just so easy. Yep, let's give that a go. Let's make sure that we set the group. And you can see now I can make it scopable and localizable. I can change my mind really quickly. There's some caveats though. If it's mandatory and I save, you'll notice that I can't do that anymore. There's some other limitations you'll find inside our documentation. There's not many. That's my big mouse pointer. Great. And now, if we go add this to a family, let's add it to the bedside tables.
So Chuck, why might we restrict the attribute from being made localizable when it's mandatory? I think the answer is that if you've got it on your website and it's linked to your website and you've got data, there's probably a kind of a dependency on that structure, which is why we can't just mess around. We don't want to mess around with something that's mandatory. But when you make it unmandatory, or is that the right word? Optional?
Optional, thank you.
Unmandatory. What kind of word is that? When you make it optional, then I guess that frees you up to mess around with it, because the implication is it's not fundamental to the data structure.
Correct. I mean, if you expect something to be true and all of a sudden it isn't, you would be surprised.
Yeah.
And so mandatory, a unique field, something you use it as a dependency, if that changes on you, you would be surprised. And so we sort of limit you to say, hey, remove the surprise, then change the attribute.
You can tell I didn't work on this feature, right? Because I'm like, I'm unlike you guys. I'm like, tell me about this.
Let's sit down after this.
Yeah, I will.
Fantastic. So I've added it to the family. I'm not going to make it take into account, if you can go back for me,
Oh,
please.
sorry.
I'm not going to take into account any kind of completeness score in this particular case. So let's jump over to that product, and let's look for our employee score. Where is it? I put it in marketing. There it is there. So I'm going to click Save. Very quick on this. And now, regardless of what channel I'm in, and regardless of the locale that I go to, look at that. Let's jump to Australia. It's the same. That's expected. That's exactly what we had before. However, let's jump over to that attribute now, and let's change our minds. We learned from the customer. Emily and I had a chat. We're like, no, custom per channel, please, Chuck. Before, that would be an issue. Now it's not. So no worries, Emily. Quick warning. Any integrations that rely on this, you should check on those and change those too. And so we send you a little note there. Now it says to me, choose the channel for the data you want to keep, or you want to send over. So in this case, I don't want it for print. I only want it for B2B and e-commerce. So I'll click Save, and of course it's asking me to confirm. And it's telling me at the top exactly what's going to change and what's not going to change. I'm going to go for it. I can jump over to the progress tracker, check its progress. And of course, this will depend on how big and complex your catalog is, but in this case, it's quite simple. So jumping over, we can see that if we jump back to our product, where we had our value. There it is there. Of course, we can see that it is no longer there for that channel. Now, I can go and do the same with locale, but of course, it's just a repeat. But the main takeaway I want you to understand is that we're trying to make the PIM data model as flexible as you need based on the fact that your company is moving fast and learning how to change very quickly. And sneak peek into something coming in the next few weeks. Oh, look at that. Because I'm allowed, and I totally asked the team for permission, and they encouraged me to share this with you, is you'll notice that I can't change the types. Well, that's interesting. So I selected something, but I can't change it. So I went from a simple select, but I can't go to a multi-select after all of that work. As of next week, that won't be the case anymore. We'll be rolling out the ability to change attributes as well. And you can see where Akeneo is going with this. Oh, we got a clap. Thank you very much. Go back one for me. And for everyone's context, we'll be able to go from like a simple select to a multi-select. You'll be able to go to text area, number to text, and various things. You'll be able to really be flexible.
You can see celebration, proper celebrations there.
There we go. And of course,
we didn't even pay you for that one. Thank you.
If there's anything else like this that you want, please bug me, right? This is my job, is to make you happy with how the PIM works, specifically the real hard stuff under the hood. Yeah, grab me.
Great. So to recap, not only do we have that greater flexibility and even greater flexibility just around the corner, but you no longer need to just struggle to decide. I think we made this point enough times now. So you can get started quickly. And that's the best part for me. It's that when you are right at the beginning, a lot of our customers are kind of waiting before they launch that new collection or that new product line, because they're like, I need to make sure it's perfect. I need to make sure it's perfect.
Yeah.
Now you just get going and you can sort of draft. It's like a draft that you can then iterate and iterate and iterate until you get your product collection to what you want. So it stops that kind of delay. And I think that will make it a lot faster to get started. And then, of course, much more flexible to carry on.
And I can guarantee you it does. Like, I use the PIM more than most people, and I'm constantly like, oh, frustrated. And all of that has gone away. I'm jumping around the PIM with the shortcuts super quickly, and I'm just changing my mind on the data model super quickly. And of course, I have access to things you don't have yet.
Yeah. So we're doing a little swap here. And finally, I have to touch the product now. So watch out. Because
That's my laptop. Be careful.
his trackpad's different to mine. I'm just making the excuses now.
It is. That's an engineer's laptop. And so we've learned how to use AI, and we've learned how to get to market more confidently. But when it comes to adapting our data, we need to focus on assets now. And so preparing your assets is quite difficult. I think many of us have experienced how difficult it can be to meet all of the marketplace requirements that we have to adhere to. It's time-consuming, it's difficult, and I know quite well that it is. And for many of you, sort of changing and customizing your assets per channel is just a headache. It is just hard work that takes time and human resources. Well, not anymore. John, show us how it's done.
So with assets, we wanted to make it easier for you to edit assets right here in the PIM rather than having to be going into another system all the time to make small adjustments. And one of the things that Alex already showed you this morning is the Smart Edit, where you can change the background or take the background out completely. This is especially useful if you've got a very rich site where you're creating your own brand experience and you've had all those professional shoots with all the shadows and stuff, and then suddenly your channel says to you, I'm sorry, we just want a square picture with a white background, perfectly cropped. So now you can do that. So we can do that here, one-to-one. We mentioned earlier, you can do it through the transformations. We're going to get ugly and dirty now because we're going to go into the transformations, and if you're a bit more technical, you might enjoy this. So anyone use the transformations feature for assets already today? Okay, a couple of you. The truth is, it's not been very used by our customers. It's probably about 10% adoption, which is very low by our standards, and we want to get that a lot higher. And we worked out a couple of things. First thing was that we made all these transformations, but they weren't actually accessible to you. You couldn't extract them by the API and tailored exports easily. Now, every single asset attribute is available to you as a target to get out. So not only are we uplifting the abilities of transformations today to add auto crop, aspect ratio changing, and of course, background removal and replacement, but now we're also sending that out. And then you add on top of that, we're adding the CDN, which means that that link is now a link that you can just throw at anything that you want, and it will just cope with the performance that you need, even if you want to put it directly onto your website. And if we go back into the catalog volume monitoring, we've also tried to make it easy for you to see what's going on in the background as well. So we have the bandwidth consumption now here. This is fake. This is the one fake part of the demo, because when we do a test environment, it's not used any bandwidth. So we've added a toggle just to show you a demo mode. So I haven't actually used 497 or 500, but in your account right now, you can go to this screen and you'll see exactly what you've used of our share link. And most of you will be quite low because if you're using share links today, you'll probably be using them just to share with a channel, and then they'll make a copy for their CDN, and then it will be somewhere else. But now you can use these, leverage these, and you can get upgrades to that 500 as well, to whatever your requirements are, and come and talk to us. The other thing we've got here is the high precision background removal. This is probably one of the most kind of costly parts of the AI that we're using today. And as a result, we've limited it to 50,000, but we think this is a reasonable number to give you all for free. But yeah, again, if you want to do 1 million images or something like that, you can come and talk to us as well. And this helps you to track where it's going. You'll have noticed there's another background removal we have as well, which isn't called high precision, but actually works great for nearly any kind of round or normal shaped object. So the high precision comes especially useful when you've got a bike, and you've got a bike wheel and the spokes of the wheel. Every single spoke is being cut out. We see a really good performance there, and we want to give you that optionality where you've got 50,000 to really target your complex products with. And then if you've got like a cereal box, you're just cutting out and you just want to remove the shadow, then our standard background feature, which is unlimited, probably work really well for you anyway. So that was a whistle-stop tour with assets, because I'm aware that we're wanting to give you time as well to make sure you can ask your questions.
Yeah, so let's actually do that, John. Let's go straight to questions. Given that we have 4 and a bit minutes, we've got Max in the back, the smartest engineer I've ever met, and he'll help us answer any questions, and then we'll look at a little bit of the votes that you had before. And so, actually, if we could just leave the demo screen on, that'll be great, because we'll just demo anything that you have any questions. So, it's always difficult to go first, but does anyone have any questions for us? I'll go in the back, apologies.
Hi. I had a question on the demo that you showed us on the attribute dependencies with the bedside table. I was just wondering what happens with the already enriched data in the dependent attribute if you change the value from the trigger attribute?
That's a good question. Well, if I think I understand the question correct, and I'll try and...
So you chose wood first, and then you enriched the wood certification, and then you changed it to metal. So the wood certification is
Good question.
not displayed anymore. What happens with the data?
So in that particular case, I didn't hit save, but I could have hit save, and then it would have overridden the data. In fact, should we try it?
It will give you a warning. So when you try to save the dependency rule, it will give you a warning that, the current set of data is not matching with the availability, So you will get a trigger point when you will try to save it that you will have a warning there.
I think the short answer is the data's going to go, right? Because you're removing, it's like deleting the data. If you're deleting the attribute that's holding the data, you're going to be deleting the data in that attribute. And that's the risk and the warning that you're going to get.
Crowdsourcing the answer, I love it. Yeah, so we got a warning. Thank you for that, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir, I'll go here.
You had the question. So you've answered one, now you can ask one.
The smart edit is for the assets is also available for the bulk editing, or is it really for one asset?
Great question. So I was showing you the transformations. So already in the rules, the asset rules, the transformations, you can set up a profile in the transformation that would automate it for the entire family. What we would like to do is make it even more flexible for you. Again, sneak peek. It's the team I work with, so I'm allowed to say this.
Yeah.
They're actually already working on adding it to the bulk action so that you could do, say, select 20 assets and then say smart edit at that level, because sometimes it's not every single asset. And if you've got that 50,000 budget, you don't want to waste it on the images that already have a blank background. You may want to have some kind of tag or filter. Just filter for those images, make a quick change. So that's something I hope, if everything goes really well, in the next quarter, we'll be able to increase.
And I would love to add to that. So from an engineer's perspective, if you hit a limitation on the PIM and it isn't allowing you to achieve what you want to achieve, try and get hold of us through your STM, because the best way that I can do my job is to serve you in a way that you need to be served. And so let me know how to do it, and then we'll do it. We can build anything. The problem is we just can't do it all at the same time. That's the only difference.
Yes, there's a small matter of prioritization we need.
That's the problem, right?
But again, by you telling us what you want, that voice is something that we pay a lot of attention to, and it helps us to prioritize.
And that's a good point. Every single one of our engineers has been told that their number one priority is customer centricity. Right? So we need to learn from you on what you need, and then we will work on it in order to make your lives better. That is our goal, especially in 2025. I think we had a question, yeah?
Hi. Sometimes we have the problem that we have to change the code of an attribute afterwards. Now we have to create a new attribute, export it, import it again. Will it be possible, or is it on the roadmap that you can actually change the code of an attribute?
So the code is one of those limitations. It's used as the unique identifier. So the simple answer to your question is no. However, since we're connecting afterwards anyway, why don't we talk and see if there's some other way that we can learn from your current situation and then add it. Thank you for that.
Behind you.
As you made loads of changes and you've got the Control and K shortcut now, the Control and Z shortcut to go back to the originating screen might be good, just so you can flip between the two fast.
That's a good idea.
But you wasn't on the right product. Is there no way to toggle the last saves that you can see on screen? Because the only way we can see history is by going to that product.
Great recommendation. If I learn your name after this, I'll name the feature after you. And right now on a Mac, for example, you can hit Command and square brackets to jump back to the previous screens that you're on. And so that's an example, but we should highlight that.
Can I just ask you a follow-up question, which is, do you mean in the context of the user? Because
yes,
of course,
so if
there's 100 people working on the PIM and there's like an automated updates and everything.
Just within
just
the
your
user
stuff,
view,
what you've been doing.
If you had like in Visual Studio or a development environment, you can see the changes that are in order.
Yeah.
Just something visual that you can toggle on to say, did I do that, and that, without having to. Now you can quickly flick back through. You lose the sight of what you may have already done.
I think that's great.
That's a solid suggestion. It's a great way to finish because it means I've got more of a chance to remember it and write it down
Yeah.
afterwards. But I'm afraid we're out of time. Chuck and I are going to be around today. So your official question time might be over, but you're very welcome to come and talk to us as much as you like afterwards. But thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
And we'll see you soon.
Appreciate it.